My name is Jeff Anderson. I am the founder of Jeff Anderson and Associates. I am here standing with very courageous survivors, very courageous survivor advocates, and very committed folks today to call out and to require the Archbishop of San Francisco, Archbishop Cordileone, to reveal the truth, to reveal and disclose all the names of the offenders that have worked in the Archdiocese of San Francisco and that have violated, raped, molested, and abused children. Archbishop Cordileone, name your predators. It's time. You stand as one of two bishops now remaining in California that have not identified the list of offenders you have and in your possession that you know have been credibly accused of childhood sexual abuse and rape of children, and who have worked in your archdiocese. We stand here today to make sure there is light and there is truth, because the practices employed by you, Archbishop, are dark and they are dangerous. And by not disclosing the truth, they are deceitful. We stand here with a survivor by the name of Eric Zuniga. Eric disclosed his abuse to us just recently. He was violated by an offender. And he stands with us today for the first time to share what was done with him, to help work with us to protect other kids and reach other survivors. He has a case that is being brought under the Child Victims Act in California that allows him and other survivors in California to identify and sue their offender and those that allowed the offender to be protected. And that is the Archbishop of San Francisco, the Bishop in Oakland, and all the bishops across the state of California. And so, Eric, I'm going to ask you to step forward here and introduce yourself and give us your name.
My name is Eric Zuniga.
And I know you're nervous here today, and this is the first time you've really disclosed to virtually anybody what was done to you. But why don't you share what it is and why you're here?
Well, why I'm here, as you can see, the picture that Jeff's holding is my life was pretty much taken away. My childhood, my well-being, my intimacy. And this is the perpetrator that's being protected for what he did to me, and we don't even know how many other young boys and girls. The people that need the most protection on this planet are children. They're innocent. That's why I'm here, because I'm one of many people who've had to hold these burdens our whole life because there's nobody to trust. And now I found Jeff Anderson and his advocates, and I got a team of people that are going to stand with me. And everybody in our communities need to be stronger together, stand together, because this dark corridor, this corridor of abuse needs to be shut down. And it's happening right now. The moment I'm speaking, someone is being harmed. Someone's child is being harmed, similar to the harm that happened to me. And it has taken a lifetime to get to this point, to speak up and to speak out, because I had nobody to trust, nobody to go to. I made the call to the Oakland Diocese. I made that call, and I never got a call back. I told them that I was abused, and they never called me back. They dropped the ball. Well, there's no more room under the carpet to hide. The carpet's full up. There's no place to hide, and I'm not hiding. And nobody who's a survivor should hide, because we're innocent people. That's who we are. You want to know what a survivor is? An innocent person who has had great loss because of the undertow of our society.
Eric, you're now 56 years old. This is a secret and a shame that you carried in silence for decades, and now have disclosed to us what was done to you by this predator, Edward Casey. And today is the first time you've really shared this with anybody. And you also know that under the suit that we bring for you, you can proceed as a John Doe. Your name and your identity is not required to be disclosed. And you and we want every survivor to know you can come forward. You can share your secret. You can have a voice. You can be believed. You can take action. You can expose your offender. You can cause accountability to be, and you can be so anonymously, and you don't have to use your name like Eric chose to do here today. Eric, Zuniga, thank you so much for your courage and your words, and standing with us and for yourself and those kids that need you, and those survivors that are suffering in silence, just like you did for decades. And they will suffer until they know they're not alone. They will continue to suffer. And Archbishop Cordileone, you will allow that suffering to continue until you release the list of offenders you know exist. We identified, when we did a list 2 years ago called the Anderson Report, there were 135 predators and priests who had been publicly accused of sexual abuse in the Archdiocese of San Francisco. We released that list. We released that list. That was 2 years ago, 135 2 years ago, and today you have yet to release this list. Archbishop Cordileone, your offices are right over there. This billboard right here is to light up the truth and the call to action. Why is it the survivors, the survivor advocates, are the ones that are having to reveal these things? You're the ones that are holding the secret and have the power. So it's time. It's way past time. And we're grateful to you, Eric, and all the survivors that stand with us here today. Joelle Casteix, please give us a perspective.
My name is Joelle Casteix, and I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse in the Diocese of Orange in Southern California. And I'm here today because perhaps only a billboard will be able to get through to the Archbishop that survivors' voices need to be heard. Maybe it's only a group of people standing here in front of that billboard that can make it clear that it's time to shift the balance of power, and that the new California Child Victims Act is the #1 way that every survivor, every child who was sexually abused across the state of California can now use the courthouse to expose what happened to them, can use the courts to make sure that what happened to them never happens to another child. I came forward in 2003 under the civil window then. I thought I was the only one. For years, no one believed me and blamed me for the abuse. But because of the first Child Victims Act, I got the documents and I got the truth in my case. Every survivor in California now has that opportunity. And I encourage anyone who knows about abuse in San Francisco, anyone who has suffered abuse in San Francisco, you are not alone. We stand with you, and we will light signs until there are no more signs to light, so that we can make sure that every child is safer from abuse in the Archdiocese of San Francisco.
Archbishop Cordileone, when we released the list of 135 priests from the Archdiocese of San Francisco over 2 years ago, who had all been publicly accused of childhood sexual abuse, we assembled that list and we expected you. We demanded at that time, over 2 years ago, release the list that you have. We know of 135 publicly, and we identified them by name. We identified their photos and their assignment histories. What's your excuse? You're adhering to the secrecy, deceit, and deception. You have a moral, legal, and theological obligation to truth. The truth is you have a list. The truth is the list could be hundreds. The truth is you have the files. The truth is you have the evidence. The truth is you are hiding it. And every day you hide the truth, you hurt the survivors who are suffering in silence and those who have come forward even further. It's time. It's time. This billboard behind us is really our call to you to take action. We knew that you didn't respond the last time we were here. We knew you didn't release the list. We knew you have it. And you're one of 2 bishops in California that haven't. We called on the bishop yesterday in Fresno to do the same, and we're calling on you to do this. We knew because you won't respond and you continue to hide the truth and the list, the names and the histories, we hired this billboard. And this billboard is going to drive around this cathedral and the Archdiocese offices for the next hour. And then the next 7 hours is going to be driving around demanding that you take this action and speak the truth to parishes around the Archdiocese. And we've identified parishes all around here where we know offenders have been protected, where the truth is being hidden. And this billboard on this truck is going to be driving around. We are sorry that we have to do this. We are sorry that so many kids, now adults, have been so hurt for so long, and that sorrow and that pain is being aggravated by your decisions, your choices to not have the truth told. But we know it's time, and we're grateful to the survivors for the courage demonstrated every single day. And under the Child Victims Act, every survivor can come forward confidentially in California now under the law, bring an action, name the offender, identify the offender publicly, identify the archbishop and or the bishops that made the conscious choices to protect these offenders and be a part of protecting kids in the future. And it's time, and we're grateful to stand with all of you. Anybody else want to add anything? Dan?
I'm Dan McNevin. I'm survivor of the Oakland Diocese. a member of SNAP, Survivors Network of Those Abused by Priests. We have thousands of members who have been abused. If there had been a list in Oakland when I was a kid, I would not have been molested, because the priest who molested me had been arrested in a different county for a sex crime as a priest. My father would not have sent me to that church had he known that Father Clark was a convicted felon. The importance of a list to me is twofold. Validation for survivors. We've talked about the healing. Eric's coming forward. Joelle came forward. I came forward. There are thousands of us who have not come forward because we are afraid that we're alone. The priest who molested us, these people, maybe has not been named. So by naming names, you validate survivors, you start them on the next leg of their healing journey. And the other issue is safety. 40% of the known abusers in the Catholic Church are alive. They're someplace. Whenever a list is published anywhere in the United States by a bishop or by an order, new names come out. Those names, some of those men are alive. And it's only at that point that a parent or a family member or a husband or a wife can sort out what happened to their loved ones. It's a crime. It's a crime that this list has not been published. I'll tell you a story, current today's story about safety. In Michigan, they finally published a short list in the Archdiocese of Detroit. A name was on it that hadn't been named. That guy is called Lawrence Ferris. When the list was published, he left Detroit. He came to San Francisco. He began to work in 2019 in San Francisco. The AG of Michigan, Dana Nessel, opened an investigation. She opened a hotline. Somebody called her. A second victim came forward. At that point, Bishop Vigneron of Detroit should have called Bishop Cordileone of San Francisco and said, get that guy out of ministry. They did not. In 2020, a year after his name had been announced, because there's no list here, that guy's working in Montara. He's dangerous today to kids in Montara. Bishop Cordileone has got to join the 21st century. There are thousands and thousands of victims. There are 7,000 priests we know of. There are 20 dioceses that have not published lists. There are 100 orders that have not published lists. 1 in 10 priests have probably abused in this country since 1950. We only know of about 1 in 5, so we're only halfway there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan McNevin. Elizabeth Del Cid, an attorney advocate with our firm, Spanish speaking. This is an enormous problem that continues to persist in the Latino community. Elizabeth Del Cid, please speak to us in Spanish and let the word be known.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Elizabeth Del Cid y soy abogada con el bufete Jeff Anderson & Associates. Aquí estamos con sobrevivientes de abuso sexual infantil que están no nomás pidiendo, pero exigiendo que el arzobispo Cordileone de la Arquidiócesis de San Francisco publique por primera vez una lista de todos los depredadores, todos los abusadores dentro de la iglesia que han maltratado, abusado sexualmente de niños dentro de la Arquidiócesis de San Francisco. Esto es importante, no nomás para darle validez a las alegaciones que han traído sobrevivientes, pero también para que nuestro público, nuestras comunidades sepan la verdad y que la iglesia por primera vez se responsabilice aquí en San Francisco de los daños que le han hecho a niños que han sido abusados sexualmente por miembros del clero. bajo la ley en California, la ley AB 218, la ley de las víctimas infantiles de California, sobrevivientes por primera vez pueden traer demandas civiles confidencialmente para anunciar quién son sus depredadores y quién son las personas que han encubierto el abuso que ellos sufrieron de niños. Es muy importante que sobrevivientes reconozcan que ellos pueden dar su historia, pueden demandar civilmente y pueden hacerlo en una manera confidencial sin usar su nombre. Aquí estamos con sobrevivientes que están urgiendo que no nomás el arzobispo de la Arquidiócesis de San Francisco ponga en cuenta los nombres de todos estos depredadores, pero que se sepa conocer que hay alegaciones creíbles de abuso sexual infantil dentro de nuestras iglesias que el público merece saber. En California, sobrevivientes tienen hasta diciembre 31 del 2022 para traer estas demandas civiles, no importando la edad que estos sobrevivientes tengan hoy, si ellos fueron abusados sexualmente de niños y si fueron abusados por un sacerdote, por una monja, por alguien dentro de la iglesia, por cualquier depredador. Ellos tienen el derecho de traer su caso hoy. Es tiempo de que se haga noticia sobre estos derechos que tienen y que se publique la lista de todos los depredadores que existen dentro de la Arquidiócesis de San Francisco.
Let me conclude with a question. How many offenders known to you, Archbishop, and known to your offices and your predecessors, are still roaming around, unknown to anybody else? How many are still? How many are still violating the children in the parishes, in the schools, or in the communities? How come you haven't released the list you promised to release over a year ago? The only answer can be is you've chosen not to protect the kids and protect the liability and the Archdiocese against being held responsible. Hardly a reason. And so the questions have been asked. It's not time for promises. It's not time for pledges. It's not time for protocols. It's time for action, and the time is now. Thank you, brothers and sisters. Thank you, the survivors and the survivor advocates that stand with us today. It's time. Right.